Hi. Our times are filled with much heated debate about the upcoming December 2012 date. The internet and different sources of media are packed with many theories about it, which unfortunately predict a destructive future, sending fear to the weak minds and hearts of millions of people. This is the reason we find it necessary to present the Spiritist perspective about the future of our planet, for it is hopeful and it is in accordance with the notion of a loving God. Before we go any further, I just want to state that the planet will not come to an end. In 1869, Charles Darwin wrote the book entitled The Origins of the Species, in which he describes that the current organisms existing are the result of the evolution of previous organisms. In it, he demonstrates with compelling evidence that today's life forms are the result of mutations of previous organisms, which are better suited for the current environmental condition. As the environment changes, so does the organism to which he needs to adapt. For those organisms which for some reason are unable to adapt, they will fall into extinction. Biologists and zoologists alike, although they accept Charles Darwin's law of the survival of the fittest, they conclude that there is no objective in the adaptation of the species besides a need for survival. On the other hand, according to Spiritism, although it agrees with what science states, it takes a step forward. Spiritism states that the environment is not changing endlessly without any purpose, but the whole planet is also subjected to the law of evolution. The same way in which organisms follow different stages of transformation, infancy, adolescence, adulthood, until it reaches maturity, so does the planets which exist in the universe. Hence, our universe is replete with planets on different levels of evolution. Our geological record shows that our planet was uninhabitable due to the extreme environmental conditions. Slowly and progressively, through many changes over extensive periods of time, it became hospitable to different kinds of life forms, ranging from unicellular to multicellular organisms. Without any doubts, our planet is much more evolved than it was before. But once again, a scientist, a geologist to be more precise, will determine that the planet simply evolved aimlessly with no purpose. Common sense rejects such idea. How can the entire universe have no purpose? How can the existence of life here in our planet be a mere accident? Not to mention that for an atheist, since there is no creator, the beginning of the universe stemmed from nothingness. It popped up into existence and then evolved endlessly, and life once again is just an accident. That is contrary to the most basic scientific law, which states that there is no effect without a cause. The universe is an effect, and the creator is the cause. It is the supreme intelligence, the cause of everything. And being the supreme intelligence, it could not have created the universe or the planets without any purpose. Through observation, one can tell that everything in nature has a purpose. From the smallest living matter to the biggest things on the planet, each plays an important role to maintain stability in nature. Nothing exists without a purpose. Yet, we are ought to believe that the billions of galaxies and zillion numbers of planets has no purpose, and that it simply served to decorate our night skies. For some people who are new to this kind of information, it perplexed them, the notion of other planets. But recent calculations from respected scientists have shown that in our own little galaxy, there could be more than 10,000 civilizations, not to mention that there are billions of galaxies. Not only is it very naive to assume that we are the only civilization in existence, but our reason and logic naturally repels the assumption that the entire universe is only populated by us. There is a photograph by the Hubble telescope called the Deep Field Picture, which covers only a tiny section of the cosmos. After receiving the light from the distant stars for 12 days, the Hubble revealed the existence of so many galaxies that it's simply impossible not to be baffled by it. That picture alone leads to such a state of wonder that even if you are an atheist contemplating it, you will find yourself asking questions such as, does a creator exist? And is there life on other planets? And most important, it begs the question what all this exists for. One of Spiritism postulate is the plurality of inhabited worlds. It states that God has created the planets to serve as schools with increasing levels of education, in which the ascendancy of the soul takes place in its journey from ignorance to intellectual and moral perfection. In the book The Gospel According to Spiritism, Chapter 3, entitled In My Father's House There Are Many Mansions, in reference to Jesus' teaching, the Spirit Augustine describes the ascendancy of the planets on an increasing scale. He affirms that there are 5 different categories of planets, which are primitive world, destined to receive the initial incarnations of the human soul, worlds of tests and atonements, where evil predominate, regenerating worlds, where although the inhabitants still being imperfect, they struggle to overcome themselves and not other people, blessed worlds where goodness outweighs evil, celestial or divine worlds inhabited by purified spirits where only goodness exists. Earth belongs to the category of worlds of tests and atonements, which is why mankind lives encompasses such misery. Our planet is most populated by low-order spirits, making it a low-ordered world. We can attest this by studying our history, which sadly much of it revolves around the supremacy of one people over the other, by countless wars which were fueled by greed, selfishness, and pride. But what all this information has to do with December 2012? In the book of Genesis by Allan Kardec, chapter 18, the Spirit Arago state that the time has come in which Earth will move up on the scale of progression of the worlds. It will move from the test and atonements category to a world of regeneration. Although the spirits doesn't specify any dates, they have suggested that Earth is concluding one of its less known cycles called the precession of the equinox. And with the end of this cycle, not only Earth will change geologically, but also the morality of its inhabitants as well. The precession of the equinox cycle happens approximately every 26,000 years. This is why the average person ignores its existence. What the Spirit Arago suggests is that just like every other cycle, it first goes through a period of stability and then a transition occurs relatively fast. For example, the 24-hour cycle. During daytime, the intensity of light bathing Earth is almost unchangeable until nighttime arrives. And then, in just a couple of minutes, everything is dark. The same process occurs with the 365-day cycle, or the seasons. First, a period of stability for about 3 months, and then, in just a couple of weeks, the weather changes. According to the spirit of Arago, the planet is on the verge to finish another equinox cycle. And what that means for our planet is that it will enter into a new age, a new period of its evolution, a much better state than the one we are currently on. But before our planet is fully developed to a world of regeneration, it will first go through a period of transition. In nature, major changes rarely happens abruptly. It is always a result of imperceptible small changes. But whatever geological transformation we might witness in the near future, these changes will occur for the betterment of the planet and its people, and not the end of the world, as so many people are wrongfully predicting. Another important point to understand about this transitional period is that since the planet is a school for the ascendancy of the soul, those people who are determined not to evolve will be expelled from this school to continue their moral ascendancy in a different school where the environmental conditions will resemble those that were present when our planet was at the Stone Age. Then these recalcitrant men and women will expiate all their wrongs and moral imperfections in order to deserve to live in a world of regeneration. Until then, they will greatly miss the place where they came from. Hence, the myth of the lost paradise. If you find this information too hard to swallow, consider this analogy. Imagine a school who wants to better itself by buying new equipment with government grant. But the grant will receive only if the students are able to meet their academic expectations. The problem is that some students are willing to work harder to achieve the school's goal, while other students not only don't do what is asked from them, but they become a negative influence on the good students. So the principal, in order to better the school and protect the good students from negative influences, he decides to move the bad students to another school and gives them the chance to come back to the new school if they work hard enough to improve themselves. Regardless of what happens on December 2012, we are called to construct a new era for humankind. In this new era, at last, we will not look for our enemy on the outside, but will finally understand that the challenges that we must overcome are within ourselves. You were not called to transform others, but to conquer your inner weaknesses, to substitute laziness for hard work, greed for generosity, resentfulness for forgiveness, pride for humbleness, selfishness by altruism, hatred for love is your main duty, and the reason that you were born for. And if you apply your best efforts in doing so, you can rest assured that peace and happiness will be yours.